Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another Pioneer video, and today we're going to be talking about Thoughtseize and whether or not it should be banned in Pioneer. So there's a lot we have to go over today. So obviously we're going to talk about the card itself, the role it has in the decks that it does see play in. We're also going to be talking about how it is in its role in the entire format, just whether or not it's a good card. Well, obviously it's a good card, but whether or not it's a good card to have in the metagame. And then with all that information, we're going to kind of come up with an answer, and we'll kind of see how that looks as the video progresses. But Thoughtseize has been around for quite some time. It's just recently a lot of people have been talking about, hey, should this card be banned? I mean, Ratos Midrange is everywhere right now. Let's just get rid of the card. I'm tired of playing against it. And we're going to kind of talk about that all today. So for those who don't know, Thoughtseize is a 1-mana black sorcery. Target player reveals their hand, you choose a non-land card from it, and that player discards that card, and you lose 2 life. Thoughtseize has been a very, very strong card for quite some time now. It was originally printed in the original Lorwyn, and then it was reprinted in Theros, therefore making it Pioneer legal. So it has been legal in Pioneer since day one, and it's always been one of those cards that's heavily discussed whether or not it's too powerful for the format as a whole. So one of the first things I want to talk about is, why do people actually hate playing against Thoughtseize? What's the big deal? It's 1 black, they discard a card, what's the big deal? Where most players' frustrations come from is the fact that your opponent gets perfect information for only 1 black mana. And it can be even before you even have a chance to do anything. It's just turn 1, Thoughtseize off of just 1 black land. That's all you need. And your opponent has perfect information of what is in your hand. You know, and in tournaments, this can be very, very relevant. If your opponent doesn't know what you're playing, they go turn 1 Thoughtseize, they have perfect information, and it can just help lead to overall gameplay strategies. Whereas for you, if they just go turn 1 Thoughtseize, it could still be a number of different decks, just because there's so many different decks in the format that actually like to play Thoughtseize. So what decks actually in the format like to play Thoughtseize? And here I wanted to highlight a few of them. So obviously, Ratos Midrange, it is known as the Thoughtseize deck. There's also Mono Black Waste Not, Ratos Aggro, Ratos and Jund Sacrifice, as well as Dimir Control / the Ninja Aggro deck likes to also play Thoughtseize, in addition to a number of different decks in the format. Essentially, if you're playing a black deck in Pioneer, you are playing at least 3 to 4 copies of Thoughtseize in your 75. So obviously there's a ton of different decks in Pioneer that actually play Thoughtseize, primarily just every black deck. If you're playing black, you're going to be playing Thoughtseize in your deck. But actually, how much of the metagame is shared by Thoughtseize decks? So taking a look at the most recent Metagame Breakdown on MTG Goldfish, we can see that only 3 of the top 10 decks in the format actually are playing Thoughtseize. But when you actually combine all the metagame percentages for the Thoughtseize decks and the non-Thoughtseize decks, it's actually 39.4% playing Thoughtseize and 32.9% not playing Thoughtseize, which most of that does come from Ratos Midrange, which obviously you can see is 25% of the metagame. That's a quarter of the metagame just being one entire deck. Ratos Prowess and Ratos Aggro just place Thoughtseize in the sideboard. It's not a main feature of the deck, so really it's just Ratos Midrange carrying Thoughtseize. So one common thing I see when it comes to Thoughtseize overall is people really love to talk about how good it is in the Ratos Midrange list, which Ratos Midrange has changed quite a bit as time has gone on with Pioneer, because obviously it was just regular Ratos Midrange, Shieldred, Bankbuster, Fable, that kind of thing. And then it pivoted to Ratos Vampires, which obviously Ratos Vampires was the best deck in the metagame. It resulted in Sorin Imperious Bloodlord eventually being banned, and then post the Amalia and Sorin ban, the metagame has changed a little bit, but as much as some things change, some things stay the same, and Ratos Midrange is still the best deck in the metagame, but there's a ton of different cards in the deck, and I want to talk about some of them today. So taking a look at the most recent Ratos Midrange list, it's a pretty traditional list in terms of the non-creatures that it does play, but the creatures are a little bit different. It's playing 4 copies of Fear of Missing Out and 2 copies of Blade of the Oni, which is a really, really cool demon that's also really, really good with Unholy Annex, Ritual Chamber. It's just a demon Phyrexian arena that's super duper powerful. With Unholy Annex, you get to draw an extra card, but if you have a demon, you get to drain your opponent for 2, which obviously combos really, really well with Blade of the Oni, but you can also just play the Ritual Chamber side or unlock the door to be able to make a demon. We've seen a lot of these lists also play Archfiend of the Dross, but this list in particular is just playing 2 copies of Shieldred the Apocalypse. But overall, it's a relatively straightforward list, but it is playing a lot of brand new cards in it. So obviously taking a look at the list here, it's a pretty straightforward, you know, Ratos Midrange deck. There's really nothing too crazy going on with it. Obviously, it has the 4 copies of Thoughtseize and also has a few copies of Duress in the main board. It's just extra copies-ish of Thoughtseize to be able to play. But the biggest thing I have, and my question for all of you today, and I guess it's a hypothetical question here just because I'm going to be answering it myself, is Thoughtseize the problem in Ratos Midrange? Personally, I'm leaning toward no, and I'd like to talk about 2 specific cards right now in the Ratos Midrange deck that I think are a bigger problem than Thoughtseize. The cards that I think personally are the issue with Ratos Midrange are these 2 cards right here. Fable of the Mirrorbreaker and Sheoldred the Apocalypse. So, to be honest with you, I think Fable of the Mirrorbreaker is the best card that you can be playing in the entire format. The card is just so strong. Every single chapter is really, really strong. You flip it over, you get a really, really nice Kiki Jiki Mirrorbreaker-esque card, and it's just incredibly strong. I really think Fable is the biggest offender of this, but Sheoldred is also, relatively speaking, a problem as well. It's so good against other aggro decks. It's such a big creature. 4/5, it just sits there and you gain life and your opponent loses life. It's just such an incredible card. It's good in every single matchup pretty much. I think these 2 cards are really the issue in the Ratos Midrange deck. So here's the other thing too, is let's hypothetically say Wizards of the Coast, the next ban restrict announcement, they say, hey, we're banning Thoughtseize. We're getting rid of it. We think it's too annoying for the format. We think it's just too strong on Raid. It's a card that's good in Modern, and it's good in Legacy, and it's good in Vintage, so we're going to ban it. So what actually is going to happen to the format? Is Ratos Midrange still going to be good? What's it going to look like? Personally, I think if you just ban Thoughtseize, I think Ratos Midrange is still really, really good. Obviously, there's other hand attack spells in the format. Obviously, Duress is one that people like to gravitate toward. But there's also cards like Harsh Scrutiny that gets rid of creatures. And then you also have Dreams of Steel and Oil, which is also pretty efficient as well. So obviously, Ratos Midrange still has access to 1 mana, you know, hand attack spells that give them perfect information of your opponent's hand. But I think one thing that people don't talk about specifically is, A, they still have Fable of the Mirrorbreaker, which is still an incredible card that probably just needs to get banned anyways, and I think it's going to get banned at some point in Pioneer. And then you still have Sheoldred, you still have your Unholy Annex, you still have the entire Demon package and all the good mid-range cards and everything like that. So realistically, I don't think Thoughtseize changes it that much in terms of Ratos Midrange still being good. But what's going to actually happen if Thoughtseize does get banned? Personally, I think combo decks are going to be really, really good in the metagame if Thoughtseize gets banned. If Thoughtseize hypothetically ever got banned, I think these are 2 decks that you could see get a huge uptick in popularity. The Quintorius Khand combo deck, as well as Lotus Field combo. Quintorius Khand, all you need to do to win with this deck is essentially just resolve a Quintorius Khand and activate its -3 loyalty ability, and the game is over. I think Thoughtseize, in combination with Duress as well, is huge at actually taking care of this deck. And if Thoughtseize was banned, I think Quintorius Khand could become one of the best decks in the metagame, which I think is something that I don't think most people would actually like. Lotus Field is also a really, really good deck, and I think without Thoughtseize to help keep this deck in check, I think it would be very, very hard for opposing decks in the metagame to be able to beat this deck. Obviously, Duress also kind of helps with that, especially in combination with Thoughtseize, but not having multiple copies of that, I think, is going to be a huge hindrance to black decks in the format. So that's kind of why I think Thoughtseize is kind of helping keep these combo decks in check in the format. So overall, what do I personally think with Thoughtseize? Honestly, if it's not already clear, I think it needs to stay in the format. I know what you're thinking. Thoughtseizes can be so irritating to play against. And yeah, it does feel bad when you kind of keep like a sketchy 7, or maybe you have to go down to 5, and then your opponent Thoughtseizes you, and then it just messes up your tempo and things go bad. I fully understand that. Like, again, I've been, Magic Boomer here. I've been playing against Thoughtseize for quite some time. And is it a card annoying? Yes, but I never thought it was ever too powerful. Is it a strong card? Yes. I think you could make an argument that it's probably one of the best, like, cards in Magic. Like, obviously it's not like Black Lotus tier. Like, obviously you have like your super broken stuff, and then you have like your brainstorms and your Thoughtseizes, and you have things like that. But yeah, the card is really, really strong. And yes, I understand that it's annoying to play against. There's a lot of different cards that are annoying to play against. For instance, for me, I hate Cryptic Command. Cryptic Command is a really, really annoying card that I hate playing against, and that's why it's really, really glad that it's not even in Pioneer. But I think it's just one of those necessary evil cards. I think think Thoughtseize helps keep a lot of decks in check in the format. And overall, I think it's just a card that, to a certain extent, I think we're just going to have to live with in the entire format as a whole. So I wanted to bring this up just because I've seen a lot of discussions of people wanting Thoughtseize to be banned, but instead of banning Thoughtseize, I think we really just need to go after all these super duper efficient draw engines and good mid-range cards in the Ratos Midrange list. And there's quite a few of them. It's hard. If you take out just one card, they can easily slot it in with something else. So it's going to be challenging. And overall, with Ratos Midrange, obviously it being 25% of the metagame is really, really bad. That's incredibly high, especially for a non-rotating format. So what would you personally do to help combat the Thoughtseize menace that's going on with Ratos Midrange? What card would you ban? Is there a hypothetical card that you would like to see other decks maybe get a boost of, so that way it can just kind of get over or under the Thoughtseize deck? I guess, what are your thoughts on that? Just let me know in the comments section. And you want to know what? If you're really tired of playing against Thoughtseize deck, definitely check out my Wiltleaf aggro deck, because guess what? The Wiltleaf aggro or Wiltleaf Leech is the best card in the entire deck, and they can't Thoughtseize it because then it's just going to go right into play. So if you want to check out a really, really cool anti-Thoughtseize deck, definitely check out Wiltleaf aggro. So that's all I've got for you today. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I hope to catch you in the next one.